Thanks for joining us today on this Tuesday. We're really excited that you're here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone really quickly. All right. Like I said, thanks for joining us. My name is Cheyanne. Hopefully my computer works with me well today. And then I'm currently the second year fitness graduate assistant at the University of Mississippi. And Anna?
I'm Anna Taggart Minahan. I am the fitness director with Texas A&M University. So happy y'all are here. Thanks for joining.
So this is part 4 of our fitness roundtable. So hopefully you've been with us this whole time. Before we get started, I'm going to go over a brief overview. So this session is being recorded and will be posted on the Ideas in Motion webpage. Anytime that you're not talking, please keep yourself muted so that we can hear everyone. But feel free to come off mute if you want to join the conversation or ask a question. You can also use the chat box for questions and comments. And to continue to utilize the NIRSA Connect for further conversation and resource sharing. Some of today's topics have already been topics on our NIRSA Connect page. So feel free to bring up things that you've seen on there. Just some guidelines to make sure that we have a great roundtable today. Let's make sure that we're respecting all of our attendees and realizing that each person's viewpoints and ideas are their own. A lot of the conversations today might be things that you don't necessarily have all the answers to, and that's what we're looking for. We're really looking for those ideas that maybe you've had or some of the just things that have been thrown out there, and that's kind of really what we want to talk about today. We want to make sure that we're not using this as a judgment space. We're welcoming all of those conversations and realizing that everyone's institution and situation is different and that there's no one size fits all for today. Before we get to today's topics, however, we want to know who's here. So if you would just drop your name and where you're from in the chat, we would love to see it. And I'll kind of go over some topics that we previously covered so that you kind of know if you're looking for certain information. On our first roundtable, we went through group fitness, personal training, some refunds, passes. This was the very beginning of this virtual reality that we're living in. So you can find those discussions there. On our second roundtable, we talk about liability and accessibility, some different staff engagement, and then community engagement. So this was about maybe 3 weeks into the whole COVID experience. We've also talked about hiring, onboarding, special events, and then continuing virtual options into the future. So if you're looking for any specific information on those topics, this is where you can find them. But for today, we've got some really awesome topics. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna and she'll start the conversation on this.
Yeah, so obviously we all are in different situations in regards to COVID-19 and reopening. So we kind of wanted to start the discussion here specifically for things related to fitness and wellness areas. So many of you all may be preparing to open. Many of you all, depending on your location, may have different guidelines and recommendations. But we just wanted to kind of use this time to brainstorm different ideas that people have and what they're doing. So we kind of broke it down into topic areas so that we could kind of have an area to focus on the conversation around. First being group fitness. So as people are preparing to reopen facilities, what ideas do y'all have in regards to group fitness in the future?
So I know when my supervisor initially brought this conversation up to me, it really just blew my mind. I was like, why are we going to consider reopening before any of this is over? And so for me, with this conversation, I'm really looking for where do I even start my thought process? Because I was like, oh, we have all these things going on, social distancing, less than 10 people. We can't have group fitness. It's not an option. So as a graduate assistant, I'm really looking for some answers on where do I start? Where are you guys starting in your logistical planning for these things?
Hi guys.
Hi, Elizabeth.
My name's Elizabeth. I'm from Kent State and I'm the fitness and wellness coordinator. So if you guys are like us, we still have no idea when we're opening, and when we do, we don't know what we're going to be allowed to offer yet. Like group fitness classes may not be a thing until fall, if then. So right now we're still planning on continuing as many virtual options as possible. And then when we do get the go ahead to start doing in-person classes, we're definitely cutting the class sizes down, at least probably in half, because we have 3 studios and some are different sizes. And then the big thing is we have to determine who's going to clean what equipment, and what equipment we're going to allow our patrons to use, like fabric-based equipment, like yoga straps and bolsters and blankets. We might just not use those right now because obviously you can't wash them every day.
Right. That makes sense. Have you thought anything about like alternating studios based on like the day or per class? So I know that was something that we kind of talked about, was maybe on Mondays only using one of our studios and then completely shutting it down until next Monday, so we have the ability to clean it really good for a couple days. Like,
I haven't thought of that, but that's a great option. I think for summer, if we're allowed to offer classes, it won't be an issue because it'll be so slow. We'll only offer a few classes, but I think in the future for fall, because we normally offer around 65 classes a week, and we'll probably cut that down around in half and only offer the most popular classes, but offer them more often because we have to cut the numbers down.
Rebecca from Michigan State University, and we had talked actually just earlier today about, and actually it's in the comments section, having to do with one of our basketball gyms that we're actually going to potentially use that as our new cycling studio. Literally, I'm going to be over at the facility on Friday with a couple of colleagues and mapping out, what does this look like? How do you get into the room? How do you get out of the room? How close can you put the bikes? Another webinar that I zoomed in on talked about, rather than just 6 feet in each direction, which would be 36 square feet, that they were planning on 10 feet in all directions because of the nature of breathing hard during exercise. So we're going to at least look at that as a starting point to see if that's reasonable. Literally putting tape marks on the floor, just like you see at the grocery stores. This is where the bike is going to be. Potentially in using a gym for a Zumba class, putting the X's on the floor saying, this is where you can dance from. I mean, just all those practical things of how many sanitizer wipe stations are you going to have around the room? I think the biggest question right now is not knowing a decision yet on whether participants and or instructors would be required to wear a mask during a workout. And I'll be the first to admit, I even go to the grocery store and I hate wearing them at the grocery store, you know, let alone try to do a workout in it.
for sure.
But just doing the walkthrough with colleagues who can see it from a little bit different perspective than I can, because I come from the group exercise piece, but I'm in, you know, a facility that's, you know, we've got a facility manager, Dewan Wiley, and he's got a perspective on how that runs. So it's that collaboration again. How do we make this work? What kind of programming are we going to need to change in order to accommodate, you know, group exercise, or what does group exercise need to change to accommodate other areas of programming? So I totally like the idea of rotating studio rooms if you can, but we don't have that option.
Right.
Basically, I've got my cycling studio and I've got one other Group X studio. That's it. And one of the reasons we're taking the bikes out of our current studio and moving to the gym is because the gym has got 2 entrances. It's got 2 doors, so they can go in one and out the other. Whereas my other studio, my regular cycling studio, you got 1 door, and there's just no way to avoid that closeness of just walking past each other with that kind of a thing. So those are the things we're thinking about. Right now, like many of you, like most all of you, we're offering virtual classes. We've already committed to doing and maintaining virtual for the entire summer. So we know that we are not going to be back to face until fall semester at the earliest. But you got to prepare. You have to, it's almost like you have to prepare two plans. Plan A says that we're going to open sooner. Plan B is like, no, we're not going to open anytime soon. And you actually have to plan both ways, depending on what the decisions of upper administration hand to you.
Mm-hmm.
Cece, you mentioned y'all are developing 3 phases. Do you want to talk to us about what those phases look like?
Sure, I can talk to you about. We actually just got more information from our facilities team this morning. So we have a whole committee that's dedicated to reopening facilities in terms of that. So our phase 1 will be for pertaining to group fitness specifically, because we're kind of breaking it up differently. But programming required in-person participation for group fitness classes will be suspended, right? So nobody can come into our facilities, and we'll still run online fitness classes remotely. And we'll have still programming that goes virtually. But phase 2 is kind of the in-between hybrid that we were just talking about. So group fitness classes will resume social distancing, where there will be markers on the floor, and we'll rotate through spaces. That includes our cycle studio that we will be removing bikes from and only allowing a certain amount of bikes in there at one time, which is another way to do it. So maintaining that distance, as well as using courts or rotating through our aerobic studios, if you will, and using that. Our F45 studio will not be opening until our phase 3, where we're allowed for it to come in, just because the proximity and how much equipment goes on and people rotate constantly. It's just not possible to kind of work through that. But our phase 3 is where guidelines will be reduced, social distancing is more relaxed, and we're able to kind of have the new normal of whatever that might be. So that's kind of how we've broken it down in terms of group fitness.
Awesome, thanks.
I think Stephanie brought up a great point about fear. And I think that that's probably going to be a really real thing for people. But it's really our jobs to figure out how to make them feel safe. I was just talking to my grandpa on the phone. This is a funny story, kind of off topic, but he was like, I want to go back to Planet Fitness, but I don't see that happening for 3 years, he said. 3 years. I was like, you're not going to go to the gym for 3 years? He was like, it's just not going to be safe. And so he was like, can we institute a policy where you lose your membership if you don't clean equipment? I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm about to have a roundtable. We can talk about it. So anybody have any thoughts on how we're going to get rid of that fear in people?
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. This, I'll say it's a continuum. You've got some people that as soon as you open their doors, they're going to rush right in. You know, they're glad to be back. They want to do everything, you know, and then you've got other people at the other end of the continuum. And the presenter said, to be real honest, you might not ever get them back, period. That fear is so instilled with them that they will not be back to your facility. And it's all valid. It's all valid. That's just it. So, you know, usually, you know, in any service area, you kind of shoot to serve the folks in the middle, all right? Because you're always going to have outliers at either extreme. So, but that section in the middle, you still need to understand, you need to be, you know, some people are just, they'll never be back in group cycling because they're just, you know, no matter how far the bikes are apart, it's still not good enough for them. And it's just everybody's individual comfort. One of the things we also talked about is that all of us as supervisors, we're going to have to become mini coaches for our returning staff, because they're bringing back those same fears that they've lived through, that we're seeing. Some of you, like me, know people that are dealing firsthand with COVID. I've got a staff member that has multiple family members with COVID, and I can't even imagine dealing with that. So it's all of those, and this is where the counselor side of us, and very few of us, I don't think hardly any of us are formally trained in counseling, but we're going to have to become mini counselors in a big hurry here, in just easing people's fears and understanding also that the reality is no matter how much we clean the heck out of everything, we will never be able to guarantee 100% that everything is absolutely spotless. And that's a reality that not only we have to accept, but we have to instill that with and make it known with those who show up that we're trying everything we can. You need to try everything you can. We're doing the best we can. You've got to judge for yourself that comfort, whether you want to continue. You may have people come back the first time and say, nope, I guess I'm not ready for this. And they back right out. So it's that whole continuum. There's so many pieces to it. It's hard to know.
Yeah, I think that, and that brings up a good point. A lot of people, someone mentioned continuing virtual options. So I think that, if you are doing virtual options, it's a good thing to consider continuing, because then hopefully that'll provide options for folks who maybe don't feel comfortable yet. Maybe, in the summer they don't feel comfortable yet, but maybe in the fall they will, so I think providing both options is a really good idea.
I think that brings up a good point about maybe you don't want to do a group, but maybe a one-on-one experience is a little bit better. So does that make our personal training, kind of segue into the next part, does that become more enticing to people because you're only one-on-one with someone?
I'd like to just add, if I could,
Yeah.
The invincible people are the ones I worry about, because the people who have the fear factor, they're going to kind of determine where they're going to be. But the folks that won't comply with the things that we as general people feel that we need to kind of hold the line on, then we have another hat. And to what extent, do we basically enforce those policies, and then what do we look like, and what does that bring upon us? So it's obviously a very trying time, but I get concerned with the invincible people, because they just feel, oh yeah, this doesn't apply to me. I don't care. I don't fear it. And those are the very ones that I feel put us all at risk. Just thought I'd add that.
Yeah.
100%. Elizabeth, or let's see, a few people have mentioned emergency response. So in regards to, I know I saw some things about masks. I know at Texas A&M we have medics on staff on all of our facilities and locations, and they are prepared, for when we do reopen, to still, continue responding to those needs. They have changed a lot of their procedures and protocol, but I think that we have to be prepared for if we, whatever response, whatever happens in class or in the gym or wherever, that we still have to respond in the same way. I think in those instances, and obviously if you do have medics on staff, that's helpful, because then they're prepared for whatever steps they need in regards to dealing with the COVID. So do we want to move on to personal training then, in regards to preparing? Are folks thinking about plans for reopening, and if you're going to be doing any personal training in person or continuing virtually? Ideas or suggestions, thoughts on that?
Gia here from Central Washington University. And for personal training, we are going to allow it when we reopen, but fewer folks in our room, in our personal training room. And then we also open up our personal training room to the personal trainers to use for their own time. And we're not allowing any additional use besides when there's a client and a trainer in there. And we're putting sanitation systems and places in and out of all of our Group X and personal training rooms to sanitize upon entry and exit, and just following the social distancing guidelines. No shared equipment. So if the personal trainer is going to demonstrate something, they're going to set up on their own rack and demonstrate rather than sharing equipment. Certain things are just not going to be usable equipment wise, and just making sure that we're wiping down everything thoroughly before and after, and also rotating all equipment so that the same equipment isn't being used, and that the equipment that can go outside, because UV is known to help with the disinfectant process, making sure we're getting things outside in the sun and out in the open where we can. But we are going to allow personal training, just the max occupancy and the trainer-client ratio is going to be a lot less.
When you said that, that brought up a really good point. I didn't think of any of those things, honestly. But what about spotting? Like, what if someone needs a spot?
Yeah, so we've talked about that just like within our gym too, you know, like if someone needs a spot, like one, we're not going to require our staff to do that, because when you spot someone, you're not following social distancing protocols. So it's gonna, you know, we're not gonna really be doing any one max reps. Everything is going to be do what you can handle to try to avoid spotting. I mean, obviously if there's an emergency situation, something would have to be done, but knowing that our personal trainers are going to know and communicate that to our clients, that there's not going to be, we're not going to put them in a scenario, or at least hopefully not, where they would get stuck and need a spot.
Yeah. Are you requiring those trainers to wear masks? I know that was brought up in the chat. Or is there?
Yeah, we haven't really discussed that yet. We've talked about all of our staff wearing masks and how that's going to look, and whether we give them disposable ones or if they get to use the same one, if they can bring in their own or not. And that's been a really interesting conversation. Because I know, like, personally for me, I don't know that I would trust someone else holding on to my mask for me in the facility. How do you guarantee that that's not getting exposed to someone else? Like, I would want to bring in my personal mask. As far as patrons go, we haven't decided whether that's going to be something that's going to be mandatory or not. I mean, you can't really tell someone they have to wear a mask, but we are going to try and provide all of our employees with masks.
Dean, you bring up a really great point. If masks are required, then, you know, is it even safe to open? I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's just a matter of, I know every state's different and every city's different, things like that, and every university is different. So, you know, we kind of have to follow the guidelines that are set in place by our university and what they want and things like that. But is anyone thinking about screening their patrons as they come into the facility, or staff workers? I know that we've talked about that as well.
Cece threw it in the chat. Where are you at?
Yeah, I can add to that. So yeah, we will be screening personnel as they come into the facility, and I can tell you exactly what symptoms we'll be looking for: cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, loss of taste or smell, and a temperature of above 100 degrees or greater. So every time, and that will happen every time someone comes into the facility. I think, as I was talking about earlier, this is going to kind of be released in different phases, and it varies from program area to program area. So for instance, in club sports, every time they meet or every time we have a group fitness class, those people still have to get screened no matter what. It just depends on who's doing it. If they're physically entering the facility, our facilities staff will be handling that.
But, you know, CP, I appreciate very much that you want to screen, and we talked about that as well, but how does this violate or not violate HIPAA regulations, considering that most likely in a lot of facilities, the people who are screening are not trained medical or health professionals?
Yeah, I think that's the part where I'm not 100% how that's going to work, but I'm assuming that at some point we have to bring in medical professionals to do this, because they're the ones who have to do that job. But if that's not something that is feasible for everybody, I don't know that you can do that necessarily, you know. I think it depends on what your state is requiring you to do, as well as what your university is going to require you to do. I think it just depends.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's that it's going to differ at every state and every institution, but all of these are great ideas that maybe someone in this conversation can take away. I know I've already put a bunch in my pocket. I've seen Anna writing some down of all of these things that, like, these are great ideas, and maybe we can tweak them a little bit to make them work at our institution.
I can add a couple things. My name is Doug Strange from Lehigh University, and a couple things that spurred there with regards to spotting. I think a lot of this comes down to signage and notification, that we run fitness centers. We don't necessarily run max gyms. And so if we train and benefit from submaximal lifts, then we should put an RPE or a percentage of effort, understanding what rep counts we would appreciate people practicing, as opposed to doing 1 through 3 and keeping it to 6 to 10 or something like that, where we can avoid the spotting issue. Never a perfect scenario, but something in your signage that would say our staff will not be spotting you, and this is going to be incumbent upon you to manage that. Of course, you can fail and have an issue at 15 reps if you go to that fatigue level. So it happens in an instant, but obviously lesser loads would hurt less landing on you. With regards to the screening piece, that's a big nugget to tackle. And I would say when you talk about HIPAA, I think people have a choice, and that is, listen, if you want to participate in club sports at Lehigh University, this is our process. Whether you call it HIPAA or not, this is what we have to go through for the protection of the people, and this is what we deem the most reasonable source. So, you're going to have people stamp their feet or, maybe take it to a different level, but I think it comes down to clear communication when we get involved with it, what the expectations are of that university. I think club sports is going to be our biggest challenge, team-oriented, closeness, those types of things. So those are my comments on those two things.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks for listening.
Hey, I just want to jump in real quick. When it comes to screening, I think that's something, well, my name is DeJuan Wiley from Michigan State University. I think that's something that the university will probably dictate themselves. I don't think that's something that our department will decide. Just to jump back to the spotting people, I didn't come up with this, someone else did, but they said they were going to limit it to selectorized equipment. They were going to take out the free weights and eliminate the use of free weights, because someone's going to need a spot eventually. You got people with pre-existing condition, former athletes or non-athletes who've had surgery. So you never know when someone's going to need a spot. So that's an idea that we thought about as well, to incorporate just getting rid of our free weights and just using selectorized equipment to start out.
Thank you for that. I think this is a great transition into fitness centers. So sometimes as fitness professionals, we oversee fitness centers as well. I know that's part of my responsibility in my graduate assistantship. So taking off all free weights and only using selectorized, that's definitely an option. What other things have you guys started to talk about?
And Samantha mentioned switching equipment to allow for safer practices.
Yeah.
Well, I'll chime in again since I live this in profession, like many of you. All the incidental things, medicine balls, ropes, all those like smaller items, foam rollers, stretching mats, all those things are off the table. None of the shared items per se that can touch multiple people. I agree with Dwayne there regarding free weights versus selectorized. Definitely selectorized is probably the safer way to go, and maybe more readily able to disinfect. We only have so many of those machines, so we have a mixed array of all those fun things in your center and into what limitations you provide. But if you corner off those incidental pieces, you can spread out your selectorized. So there's obviously some facility management that's going to go on with this, where things are going to get pushed to the corner or taken off the floor, so you can manage those distancing requirements, if you will. But a lot of the incidental stuff will move away.
Something we're doing at Central is we're turning in one of our basketball courts into a weight area, and we're putting down mats, like the black, mats that go in a weight room. And we're putting, moving our weight room partly on the court so that we can make room for more equipment and more use, so we don't have to shut things down and we can follow social distancing protocols.
Hey, Dean, I'd like to hear more about this dirty zone, if you wouldn't mind chiming in and talking about that.
So yeah, kind of similar to what Doug had said, we're going to be removing all those kind of, you can take it off the shelf or check it out pieces of equipment. And what we're going to try to do is just utilize that area where that stuff was, to kind of rope it off, use some barriers, and just really just make it a dirty area. So if you're going to use our hand weights, or you're going to load up the bar with some weights, you're going to not return them properly like we would usually do that, but you'll return them to kind of our dirty area. And we're planning just to have a staff member there to kind of sort through it, clean it, wipe it off, make sure it sets for the proper time, and then either reintroduce it or leave it until we can, get to our kind of blocked off time to clean everything. That's the only way that I see my facility opening up, the use of hand weights, plates, bumpers, anything, is to kind of, you use it, you got to bring it back over here. We're going to have somebody either cleaning, doing our facility access, and then just kind of monitoring that we are putting that back with, tons of signage. And I think everybody's reluctant to get back. So I don't see a lot of pushback from any of our members, our students, to following those new policies. They want to come back. So, if they want to come back, this is what they're going to have to do.
I really like that idea a lot.
Yeah, Cece, I saw you asked about group fitness. We've talked about doing that for group fitness as well. So doing a similar type of thing for equipment.
Sorry, I'm just reading all these comments as they're coming in. We've talked at our institution about taking every other piece of equipment offline, and then having like a nighttime crew come in and do like a deep clean or a sanitation, and then the next day like switching. So if we have like A on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and like B equipment on Tuesday, Thursday, then it has a day of use, a night of clean, and then a day of sit, and then kind of going along those lines.
Does anybody have ideas about actually monitoring the head counts in their facilities, to, obviously it's not open door and you get what you get when you get in there, but now we're going to have to monitor what's a reasonable head count for being in there, and when somebody comes out, somebody can go in. Does anybody have ideas for that on the management side?
I don't oversee our weight room, but I do know that they are doing IM leagues. They're using IM leagues for hour-long or 50-minute sign-up spots. So they open it the day before, and I think it's like at noon, I believe, and people can sign up for a 50-minute slot for that next day via IM league. So when someone comes in the building, they see a person at the table, and they check in, and then they go into the weight room. But we're using that to kind of help avoid lines as well. Because when we first started, we were having people line up, outside of the weight room. And then they use the speaker to announce the 1 o'clock group is coming in now. So make your way out of the facility in the next 5 minutes or whatever, and that type of thing. So that worked for us pre-closure. And so they're going to potentially be implementing that again with some changes.
I've heard of universities also reserving squat racks and stuff and benches, so you could really go all out with a reservation system, I would assume.
Right. Thanks for that.
That was a great question.
Hey, Dean, how are you offering live counts on your website?
So similar to what Richie had put in there, every 30 minutes we do a count from our kind of building manager position. And what we've done is just created it's just a Google sheet that is live linked to our website. So every 30 minutes, they literally just overwrite what was put in there the previous 30 minutes. So people can see that. That was a request probably almost over a year ago from our university president, just so people could kind of see what was going on campus in our facility. So that's how we are doing it.
That's a great idea. We already offer some live cameras that you can look at on our website, like the busy areas, to see if they're busy before coming in. But that would be a great tool to have for them to be able to look at the numbers too.
Wish the grocery stores did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on, a lot of people are asking if there's a number size that you should put on like the capacity of your weight room. I think it just depends on how big your space is. So in regards to your square footage, how many people can you allow in that space?
Right. Does anyone have any more topic areas that they'd like to discuss within any of these areas? So within reopening procedures for these spaces?
I think, sorry, Megan Feely from Washington University in St. Louis. On the lines of kind of what we've discussed, I don't know if anybody else uses Fusion, but we will be utilizing Fusion for, instead of IM leagues, we'll be using Fusion for signups for our different areas. So, and we still haven't made the decision. It's kind of, we're just still talking about it, but kind of like doing, our weight racks. So pre-registering for them, we have 5 of them. So, not a lot of people will be able to use them, but kind of registering for that area. With basketball not being something that we're going to use, I think we can look at using a court and splitting our equipment, partway into the courts, like our cardio equipment. We've talked about roping off, sort of like what you guys were saying, kind of a dirty zone, if you will, kind of roping off an area where we have somebody staff and clean. We've built out kind of a task. We use Connect 2 for our students for tasks that they do. And we also use Connect 2 for our widget for facility counts as well. But we'll really utilize that on the cleaning schedule and making sure everything gets clean, things get put back on the floor the way they should. And then we'll also use Fusion with our group fitness classes as well. So we're going to do kind of like everyone else, we'll do as many possible classes outside where we can have a little bit bigger, body weight only classes that we're not going to drag out equipment or anything like that. We're going to be really strategic in the classes so when we went online with all of our fitness classes and all of our online training and Pilates, we were really strategic in making sure that that was sustainable. So we went in with a sustainable plan, knowing that I think it's something that we'll have to do maybe forever and ever now to try and help. And it's actually a really positive thing for us. I think there are people, that are uncomfortable going to the gym, they're uncomfortable going to classes, and all of a sudden we have a very unique and neat way to reach out to them and connect with them in that way. So I do think it's, if those of you who are doing online live classes, on-demand classes, we're going to start being very strategic on which ones we tape, and then get them up live and put all of our disclaimers and on our YouTube channel for our subscribers, to then do those on-demand classes as well. And I think we'll continue to do that probably forever at this point.
Megan and others, what are y'all in Fusion? What feature? There was a question asked on what's sign up or scheduling feature are you using in Fusion for that?
So Fusion has a few ways of doing online. If anybody's used MindBody before, MindBody is maybe one of the best scheduling systems I've ever used. It's expensive, and so if your university hasn't already invested in it, it's kind of a bit of a big investment. With Fusion, they have, depending on your student card swipes, they can use the different kind of cards that are out there. And I'm not super familiar with all of this, but for us, what it'll be will be like a Q, like one of those, I don't know what they're called, QR scanning things. So the students will, so that's how, so they can go in through that and register with that particular thing. And it's pretty similar to MindBody, where we open up registration, and then that's how we would check people in if we chose to check people in. But we would just write in Fusion, there's the programs. So under your system preferences, you create your program. So we'd create a group fitness, and we put our, and again, we're going to cut our classes. We run usually 76 classes a week. We'll probably cut them down to maybe 30. So we'll have to put each one of these classes into Fusion, how many spots are available, people can go and register. Yeah. So really, I think it's pretty similar to MindBody. It's, as long as you have your online store. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks.
And yeah, and the same thing with, we already have our squash, like all of our other like courts available. So we'll just kind of add in our squat racks, and we'll add in, cardio machine, whatever, if we decide to really get into it and start naming each one of our cardio equipment that you can check out or rent or go in through that way.
Yeah. I saw a question that a lot of people, I guess, said they also had was Anna mentioned if you open before August, how are you going to staff your facility if staff positions have been dissolved into the fall, or maybe you have a hiring freeze? I know for us right now, our biggest issue is our HR staff and team can't do I-9s virtually. So that's why they can't hire anyone yet. So we are hoping to see how that we can shift that process somehow to do it virtually to get people hired this summer, and then doing virtual trainings and things like that this summer to get people so that we can staff our facility and all of our program areas in the fall. But I don't know if anyone else has ideas on that or things that their university or department is dealing with or working on.
Yeah, so Jade Willie, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. This is a conversation that we've had about honestly potentially just having to open and modifying our hours so professional staff can work. We have 3 members of the fitness team professionally, so it's been a conversation of truly, can we offer hours? What does that look like? And then also if we were to run group fitness, that would fall on the 3 of us as well. So it's been a conversation of what, if anything, can we truly offer without student team members? And the answer is very little.
So I'm going to skip 2 slides because in our future topics, it kind of talks about some of these justifications for staff. So one of the topics we want to talk about was how do we maintain our essential status? And I think this kind of segues into that. So what justification can we create to make sure that we're able to pay our hourly employees, if any? And this comes to opening facilities, teaching group fitness classes. Are there any projects that your team has talked about? I know, like for us, typically our second-year graduate assistants are allowed, or our first-year graduate assistants work hourly over the summer. And so if we're going to open, then the justification is that our graduate assistants now become essential because they're going to be working the facility. If we don't open, we have some projects lined up for like taking all of our trainings and using Loom to make them virtual. And so it'll be like a screen share and your face is in the corner, and it'll teach people how to find their online W-2 or how to clock in and out for their first day of work. So I'm sure this is happening maybe for hourly professional staff as well.
So I know for our students, for the remainder of the spring semester, we were allowing them to complete meaningful work because they weren't able to come into the facility. So that could be anything from trainings to doing virtual group X classes to all kinds of different things so that they could count towards work hours. For summer, they're only going to get paid, and we're only allowed to hire essential students. So the minimum number of students we need to run the building. And that'll probably continue into the fall. And we just had a discussion today about how do we decide who we're going to bring back and who we're not if we have to cut our staff, which we're going to have to. So we actually talked about reaching out to our student employment office to see if they had any suggestions. So to be fair to the students, rather than do we keep the most senior students that have been there the longest. One of my quandaries, because I'm over the group fitness instructors, most of my staff is actually non-students. I only have after graduation, about 3 or 4 student instructors left. And our university is talking about the possibility of not renewing our non-student contracts. So if they don't, I'm not going to have a program.
But your university is still probably going to require you to do programming.
Exactly.
Justify the
So
essential-
I actually reached out to a bunch of different universities, and all of you are welcome to. I would love your input if you have it. How many student versus non-student instructors and trainers you have, and justification why you need non-students. Because I have to really show the university why I need these people to run our program.
Would you mind putting your email in the box? Because I have a good amount of non-students. I'm happy to send you a little blurb or something too.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. I see there was a question on who's able to pay instructors this summer for virtual classes. It looks like a good amount are able to continue paying. Most GF is not. I know that at Texas A&M, we are continuing our virtual classes, live classes and recorded, and I'm still able to pay my staff for that as I've budgeted for it already. I know one of our big topics in regards to staff is budget cuts, and at the university as a whole, we're looking at a 7.5% budget cut, and in all departments and areas. And so for us, that's really going to be, wages is our biggest expense. So looking at shortening our hours that the facility is open to shorten the staff from working, and probably means decreasing the amount of classes we're offering in the fall and things like that too.
I have a thought on the justification for continuing to pay the hourly employees. Just kind of tapping off of like everything we talked about. My name is Malia. I'm from Grand Valley State University. So if we're having to implement all these new policies in terms of cleaning and monitoring like the facilities, we're gonna need people that can help out with that. So that's like one, I'm thinking about hiring a few more event staff to help with the transition of cleaning after Group X classes. I'm sure the facilities team will be looking at hiring more students to help with like monitoring, cleaning. So I think that's a good justification for keeping our student employees, obviously if they're willing and we're putting policies in place that keep them safe.
Yeah, one thing to also kind of like a justification point too is that custodial is considered essential. Like all of our custodians are doing a deep clean right now. And so to maybe hire on more custodial staff as a department to help with the cleaning, because they are considered essential. And kind of going back to the whole student hourly employees, is we've been able to, at Central Washington, we've been able to like offer certificates, like customer service certificates and things like that, that we have created in a class on Canvas, and they have due dates for certain things, and they go in and they get like 5 hours a week to complete it, and it's a 4-week thing. And so that way it's not just a huge detriment to our budget, but we can spread it out over time. And so they're not just going in and getting 20 hours a week, but also being able to provide that for students. I'm in a really unique situation because I'm actually an undergrad, and our health and fitness supervisor and programmer went on maternity leave in March, and I'm a student and running the whole program. And so to like be thrown into it.
Go girl.
But it's been a success, and I have all student instructors, and it's been really awesome to watch them like grow through this experience. And some of them, what we do is if they commit to working for us for 3 quarters, we will pay for their A certification. We'll pay for their Group X certification. And if they don't have that and they can't take their test right now, we've partnered them up with people who are certified, and so that they can still teach and they can still personal train, so they can still get hours.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
You're crushing it. I'm so proud of you. Great work.
Thank you.
Can I jump back to the group fitness virtual classes for a question? Do you guys are taping them and then sending them out to your community? Is that what's going on? And is there copyright issues with music you're using in the background? Because I know that can be a hot button, and I'm just interested in how you guys are going about it.
Yeah, I can give you a brief answer to that. On our first and second roundtables, there was lots of details in the chats and on the videos about music, like in great length. But a lot of the time, if you're using like places where royalties are given, then it's okay. If you put like disclaimers on your videos, it's okay. We've only been using instrumental music, so it's been okay for us when we put them on YouTube. But those first and second webinars, there were some awesome people who knew a lot more about music than I did, who talked in great detail about those, and they're on the Ideas in Motion webpage.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
One of the other comments I would make is if there are people are hiring students, you're looking at wage, and not everybody wins here, but you could maybe hire them all, and just everybody's going to have to lose at some point. So you don't get your 20 hours a week, but maybe you get six, and the other person gets 6, and you can remain that, have that consistency of your service, knowing that you have the right people there, but everybody has to kind of cut back, but you still get to retain some staff, just as a thought for rotation. I think rotation is going to be a key part of things of us coming back online with a lot of things, professional staff as well.
So I changed the slide because we've only got like 10 more minutes. So what's on your mind? Have you learned anything new since starting this virtual era? And then have you come up with any maybe new solutions, or have any new problems arose that we might have talked about on previous calls?
I know Cheyanne and I had a really good conversation before this about the things that our staff has learned from, obviously we've all grown as professionals, but specifically for, I know, the group fitness side of things, when it comes to the classes that are virtually, I know right now we have the ability to record them on Zoom. And the way I do my payroll tracking too is by going in and watching, making sure they're teaching, and I can do evaluations that way. But we've also been able to give the instructors access to this. So our instructors are now, we've always recorded them for evaluation, but giving them access to see their teaching. I know they've really enjoyed learning by watching themselves teach, either on their pre-recorded videos that are shared on YouTube or their live fitness classes that are recorded. And I think there's so many great benefits to that. So I know that that's something we're excited about from all of this.
Yeah, I had to close caption one of my classes, and I realized that I don't actually speak in sentences when I talk in group fitness classes. I'll just start a sentence and never finish it.
I have a quick question about live classes. We're just now entering that realm. And for those of you that are already doing it, we were thinking about using Zoom as the main platform. Are you guys using like one main account that you're sharing like the login details, or is each instructor using their own personal account?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, something I've done is I've created all the meetings and then I add them as co-hosts with their account. That way I can monitor them and see what's going on, but they can also start the meeting without me being there. But I can jump in at any time. So that's been really helpful for us. Yeah.
Okay, does that prevent you from doing another meeting at the same time?
I think so. I've never had that issue, but I think it does.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern, because I have a ton of Zoom meetings during the week.
So Tori Lord, UNC Charlotte, how we were doing it up until this week was I was creating them under my personal account and starting all of them just to be on the back end of things to make sure there weren't any Zoom bombers or anything like that, and to track attendance. This week, we actually used our department's Zoom. So now they're logging into that Zoom account. And so far everyone's logged out like they're supposed to, but I'm hoping that doesn't tend to be an issue. So this week they're actually on their own with their classes.
Okay.
Elizabeth, if you want to, are you on the Facebook, the Collegiate Fitness Directors Facebook?
Yes.
So yeah. I did a Fitness Friday chat on Zoom and how we've been doing that. And we do ours currently through our department's Zoom account, just because it's also linked through the university. And so right now we do have it so that only Texas A&M authenticated users can log in, but you can set it up so that it's like password protected, or so that you have a waiting room for participants. But I would definitely say if you can get a university account, that's one account, like a general account, to have it that way. And then if you make each of your instructors alternate hosts, then they don't even have to log into the Zoom account. They can just actually they'll get that in their own personal Zoom account, so that they can start the meeting from their own account. And so we do that with our instructors now. And then we also, we have room monitors on each of our classes. So they, quote unquote, monitor to make sure there's no Zoom bombers, or make sure everyone stays muted. But anyways, in that video that I did, that's on the Collegiate Fitness Directors page, if you want to watch that, there's a lot of helpful tips in there too.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If anyone needs to be added to the fitness directors page, you can just ask Anna or I, and we can get you invited to that. Cece brought up a good point about PT, group fitness, like prep courses or instructor trainer courses. This is one of those justification projects that we're using for our graduate assistants and turning some of that content virtual. And so then we can do more practical applications in our courses, but I don't know what the logistics are of that. Anyone
Yeah,
have
this is Courtney from the University of Houston. Cece and I were actually just chatting about this. So we are exploring using Teams Classroom for our prep courses. So we are just going to take our content from ACE that we use and convert our quizzes and put our PowerPoints and videos that we are recording for lectures in Teams. So that way any of our participants have access to it that way. So with the feature, you can set dates for your quizzes. You can set dates for when you want things to go live. So that way it really just runs like a typical class or prep course would.
Love that. Thanks, Court.
If I could, I just wanted to kind of throw something into the discussion about what we've learned since the virtual era has started. So I'm Taylor Todd from Northern Arizona University. We've been approaching our virtual classes through Zoom specifically. We've only had a Zoom bomber kind of invade our virtual classes once, and that was, I think, the 17th of March. We do like the student moderator in all of our classes. We record our classes as well, especially if we start feeling like there could be any potential harassment. We're also doing a lot of stuff for YouTube right now on our NAU Campus Rec page on YouTube as well. And as soon as finals week closes off, one thing I learned about like what students are really wanting to access now is we're going to start doing TikTok videos as well. It's just some different thoughts and ideas. I think TikTok approaches, the more traditional college age demographic. Instagram Live, I think, is a little bit more preferred when it comes to like live virtual classes than Zoom. It's a different environment. And I think at some point we're also going to approach Facebook Live, probably here in the next couple of weeks as the summer months come up.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we had just started TikTok about 2 weeks ago, and it is by far, like our #1 viewed videos that are out there. And also for those that are having music right issues, the reason why we chose TikTok to do, even though we can't host like a full class onto it, most TikTok, like the rights are there for music. So like most popular music. And so our dance instructors have been the first ones to use it, and they'll do a minute of a song, teach a choreograph of that song. It's a little preview of their Zumba class, and then they'll, so we kind of use it almost as a little incentive. Like if you like this 1 minute kind of video, join Jess's Zumba, on our YouTube channel. And we have found that from the data and research that I have found, I think I agree, Insta Live and also YouTube Live are the two preferred platforms. YouTube Live has been around a lot longer than Insta, so I guess the way that it does a better recording, it's easier to hear, like if you're watching it, from your phone, YouTube just has it's a better platform to, I guess, like with, you know, again, music and stuff like that. We have kind of gotten, we actually bought a subscription from I think it's called NCI. For those of you that are having, or NCS, it's $17 a month. And what it is it's all non-copyrighted music that we can use for our videos that have been approved, so that we aren't running into the issue of having our videos pulled or muted or anything like that. I highly recommend the company. They're great. They have playlists created already for workouts, you know, so if you're looking for a 130 BPM or a 140 BPM, if you have instructors who teach to a beat, super, super great. And again, the subscription, it's not like a year-long thing. So when this is all done and over with, we can cancel our subscription. So it's really, it's made all of our videos and stuff really easy to manage then.
Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you all so much for participating. We are planning on hosting another one next week or the week after that, so keep an eye out for that. If you have potential topics that you'd like to see discussed or any questions, you can follow up with myself or Anna. Our contact information is on the screen. We thank you all so much for participating again. We hope to see you guys next time. If you're looking for the recording of this, it will be on the Ideas in Motion webpage. You can just Google search NIRSA Ideas in Motion and it will come up. Hopefully we see you all again next week or the week after that. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.